Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. You will be learning about the tangent and cotangent and you will be able to do 10.5. Today students will be able to find tangent and cotangent values for special angles using the unit circle. Before we start, let's review a little bit about what SOHCAHTOA is. SOHCAHTOA is for sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent, which is what we're going to be learning today. So for tangent of A refers to this angle, and it's always, when it says opposite, is always right in front. You can draw an arrow and that's going to be your opposite side. The hypotenuse, which is not the one that we're using here, is the longest side, and that one does not touch the 90-degree angle. That means that whatever is left, that's going to be your adjacent. And I usually draw a little arrow like this. Adjacent, opposite, and the hypotenuse is just the longest side. Okay, so let me use a different color so that it's easier to identify them. So this is adjacent, this is opposite, and the hypotenuse is the longest side. So when it says to find the tangent of A, opposite over adjacent. So when it says to find the tangent of angle A, again, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So in this case, it will be 4/3. For tangent of B, let's use a different color. Opposite, again, will be straight in front, and adjacent will be right there. It's not the hypotenuse, okay? It's not the longest side. So the opposite is 3 over the adjacent is 4. And as you can see, tangent of A and tangent of B are reciprocal of each other. And that's what we can say for the tangent and tangent of any angle. So the tangent of angle A is going to be opposite over adjacent, and the cotangent of that same angle is like the tangent of the other angle. So you just change them, adjacent over opposite. Okay, so we can say that the tangent of A is 4/3. The cotangent of A will be 3/4, just the reciprocal. Okay, the cotangent of A will be 3/4, the reciprocal. So having that in mind, we're going to be using this formula that the tangent of any angle, or theta in here, is equal to sine of theta over the cosine of theta when we're using our unit circle. And the cotangent will be, if you see, the reciprocal of that, which is cosine of theta over sine of theta. So we're just finding the reciprocal, and this is just for special angles, and that's why we're going to be using our unit circle together with these formulas. So let's get to it. All the fun. First one says find tangent of 30 degrees. Tangent of 30 degrees means sine of 30 degree over cosine of 30 degree, of a 30-degree angle. And so if we go to the 30-degree angle, the sine, if you recall, is going to be your y value, which is 1/2, divided by the cosine of 30, which is the x value, and so that will be square root of 3/2. The easiest way to find a division of fractions is just to do the top value multiplied by the lowest, which is 1 times 2 is 2. Put it in the numerator, and then the middle values multiply with each other. 2 times square root of 3 is 2 times square root of 3, and we put that in the denominator. So the outside goes on top, the inside goes at the bottom. And so in here we can say that 2 divided by 2 is 1 over, and we just have the square root of 3. And sometimes that's all you have to do, but other times you have to rationalize. You have to get rid of that square root in the denominator. And to do that, you're going to multiply both of them by the square root of 3, which is whatever you have in the denominator. And in here, you get 1 times square root of 3 is square root of 3. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9. And on the top, we cannot simplify. It's just square root of 3. But the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, and that will be the answer if they ask you to rationalize. But if not, they might say, oh, as long as you find this so that you can compare to the cotangent of 30. Okay, for the next one is tangent of 45. Again, we already know that for tangent is going to be sine of 45 over cosine of 45. And that goes right here. So the sine is square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 for the cosine over 2. Again, we multiply outer values and inner values. And so 2 times square root of 2 is 2 square root of 2. 2 times square root of 2 is 2 square root of 2. And whenever you have the same value being divided by the same value, it will always be equals to 1. Okay, so that's going to be our answer. And you can even simplify from here. We can see that we have this value divided by the same value. Again, from here, you can just go directly to the 1. Okay, let's go to tangent of 60. Tangent of 60 is right here. Again, it's going to be equals, tangent is equals to sine of the same angle over cosine of the same angle, which is in this case is 60 degrees. 60 degrees, the sine is going to be square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, which is the cosine. And again, outer values is 2 times square root of 3. The inner values, 2 times 1 is 2. These cancel because 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 1 times square root of 3 is just square root of 3. So that's going to be, and instead of having, I think I'll take this. I'll just write the formula in here. For the cotangent of theta is equal to cosine of theta over sine of theta. And so in here, cotangent of 30, we go to the 30-degree angle and we put cosine divided by its sine. Okay, so the cosine of a 30-degree angle is square root of 3 divided by 2 over 1/2. We multiply the outer values. 2 times square root of 3 is 2 square root of 3 divided by 2 times 1 is 2. 2 divided by 2 cancel because it becomes 1. And the square root of 3 times 1 is just square root of 3. Okay, for the next one, cotangent of 45, it's cosine over sine. And so the cosine of the 45-degree angle is the square root of 2 over 2 over the sine, which is square root of 2 over 2. To show the process, you just multiply the outer values. 2 square root of 2 divided by the inner values, which is 2 times square root of 2 is 2 square root of 2, which is equals to 1 because they're exactly the same. Okay, cotangent of 60. Cotangent of 60, remember that cotangent start with the cosine. Okay, so it's going to be 1/2 divided by the sine, which is square root of 3 over 2. Multiply the outer values. So 1 times 2, 2. 2 times the square root of 3, 2 square root of 3. 2 divided by 2 becomes 1, and you put it in the numerator, and you just bring over the square root of 3. Again, they might ask you to leave it like that, or they might ask you to rationalize, meaning to get rid of that radical in the denominator. How do you do that? Just multiply by this same one, which is square root of 3 on both numerator and denominator, because that's 1. Square root of 3 divided by square root of 3 is a 1. So that means that you're not manipulating or changing the value of 1 over the square root of 3. 1 times square root of 3 is square root of 3. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9. And the numerator cannot be simplified. You just bring it over. And the square root of 9 is 3. So that's my answer. Now I want you to see that the cotangent of 30 is the square root of 3. And if we didn't simplify it, the tangent of 30 is 1 over square root of 3. See, the square root of 3 is the reciprocal of 1 over the square root of 3. For the 45, it's 1, which is similar to 1 over 1. And then the reciprocal will be also 1 over 1, which simplifies to 1. So tangent and cotangent for both, it's 1. And the tangent of the 60-degree angle is square root of 3, which means similar to over 1. And the cotangent of 60, when we don't simplify it, is 1 over the square root of 3, which is its reciprocal. Okay, just to make observation of that. Okay, so now for tangent of 0, we have 0 in here. The tangent again is sine of 0 degrees over cosine of 0 degrees. The sine is the value on the y, so it's 0 divided by cosine is the value on x, which is 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. Okay. For the cotangent, remember that c goes with c, so you start with cosine of 0 degrees over sine of 0 degrees. It's just to remember that for the cotangent, you start with the cosine. For the tangent, is the other. Okay? And so the cosine of 0, it's 1 divided by the sine of 0, which is 0. We can never have a denominator 0. If you even divide 1 by 0 in a calculator, it will come out as error. So try it and you will see. So whenever that happens, 1 divided by 0, if the 0 is in the denominator, you're going to write undefined. And we have learned that slopes that are 0 and undefined, they're the reciprocal of each other. Okay, for tangent of 90. 90-degree angle is right here. The tangent, you have the sine over cosine. So sine of 90-degree angle over cosine of 90-degree angle. So the sine is 1. The cosine is 0. We cannot have a 0 in the denominator, so we say it's undefined. Okay. And now for cotangent of 90-degree angle, it's going to be 2 cosine of 90-degree angle over sine of a 90-degree angle. And so cosine, again, for the cosine is always the x value. So it's 0 divided by the sine, which is the y value, over 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. Again, these two are reciprocal of each other. I will remove this since I'm writing them in here anyways. And so for tangent of pi over 4, so the only thing that we're doing now is that we're using the radians in here. So we're not going to be looking at the degrees, we're going to be looking at the radians. And so tangent of pi over 4 is the same as tangent of 45 degrees. So similar, it's going to be sine of pi over 4 divided by cosine of pi over 4, okay? And so pi over 4 is here. The sign is square root of 2 over 2 divided by the cosine, which is square root of 2 over 2. And whenever we divide the same thing over the same thing, that's always equals to 1. If you have to do the outer values and inner values, that's the other step, and that's okay. An extra step in the middle, okay? For tangent of pi over 6. Pi over 6 is, remember that 6 goes with the 3 and the 3 goes with the 6. So if it's 6, that's the 30-degree angle. So again, tangent is always sine of that same angle, but in radians now, over cosine of pi over 6. So it's this one right here. Sine is 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2. Outer values, 1 times 2 is 2. Inner values, 2 times square root of 3. The 2 cancels, and 2 divided by 2 is 1 over the square root of 3. If they don't ask you to simplify, that's all you have to do, or you might have to rationalize by multiplying times that same denominator. And it's just to get rid of the square root in the denominator. Okay, 1 times square root of 3 is square root of 3 over square root of 9. This cannot be simplified. This simplifies as 3. Square root of 9 is 3. And so that's the answer if they need it rationalized. The cotangent, again, if it's cotangent, it starts with cosine of that same angle in radians over the sine of that same angle, but in radians. And so the cosine of pi over 6, it's square root of 3 over 2 divided by 1/2. Outer values, 2 times square root of 3 is 2 square root of 3 over the inner values. 2 times 1 is 2. The 2 cancel, and you're left with square root of 3. If you see, we can immediately see right here that they're reciprocal of each other. This is like having over 1, right? So we just flip them. Cotangent of pi over 2. Pi over 2 is over here. So cosine of pi over 2 divided by sine of pi over 2. Cosine is the first value, 0, because it's always x, divided by the sine, which is 1, and 0 divided by 1 is 0. The last two. Cotangent, again, if it starts with c, it starts with cos in here. Cotangent of 3 pi over 4 divided by sine of 3 pi over 4. In here, the 3/4 of pi, it's right here, this value over here. So cosine, it's the x value, which is negative square root of 2 over 2 over square root of 2 divided by 2 for sine. Okay, sine is always on y. And so again, when we have the same thing being divided, it becomes 1. But just remember that if we have negatives, we have to pay attention to the sign. Negative divided by positive is going to be negative. And square root of 2 divided by 2 over, square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2 is just equals to 1, because they're exactly the same value. And the last one, for tangent, is sine of that same angle over cosine of that same angle, but in radians. And so sine of 3/4 of pi is, the sign is always the y value, so it's positive square root of 2 over 2 divided by the cosine, which is always the x value, and so it's negative square root of 2 over 2. I'm going to divide the signs first. Positive divided by negative is negative. And this again is the same value. It's like saying 8 divided by 8, 1. 10 divided by 10, 1. 1000 divided by 1000, 1. So this value divided by the same value, 1. Okay? And just play with the signs. Positive divided by negative, negative. Okay? That negative is from the cosine, which is the x value. Okay. So, how are these reciprocal of each other? This is like negative 1 over 1, and this is negative 1 over 1. Remember that all you're doing is switching the values, and the negative is just going to be in the middle, actually. Not, okay, it's the same as putting it in the middle, so you're just changing the numerator and denominator. Well, with this, you're now able to do 10.5, but if you would share a thumbs up with us, share the video, subscribe around here, you will find the rest of the playlist for this whole unit on the unit circle, how to fill it out, how to use it with tangent, cotangent, how to use it with secant and cosecant. It's all fun. And so subscribe, share, and don't forget to have fun.